Well, I came to America 2007, at the end of 2007. I couldn't speak English. I couldn't read, write, or talk in English. So where it was transition was very hard for me because I started in sixth grade, and the the level that I was on, it was very, like, it was the lowest. I was reading a baby's book while others were reading like sixth grader books.
I'm 17 years old. I just came from in 2010, the end of the school year, and I start going to school for a month and for eighth grade. So I just moved to high school in 2011. And then I start learning as a ESL second language in Miss Rada's room. They have ESL classes. So I only took her class that time, and I took maybe 3 or 4 classes that for my graduation requirement because I didn't know that much language. So that's why I took those 4 classes. So now I'm not graduating on time because that time I didn't know nothing about the school, how to say hi or how to say goodbye. So everything was new for me.
When I started from 8th grade, I didn't literally speak any English, and I didn't know what to do in classes, And the teachers will be teaching, and I'll be sitting there smiling, So it was really challenging and frustrating to sit there and listen to your teacher's talk, but you don't know what they're talking about. Especially in middle school, I really hated going to school, literally. And that's coming from me. I really like going to school. Back home, at least. I really do. And then I came here, I just hated it, and I just make excuse not to go. When I started high school, I started with the mindset of that if you get a C and a D, if you pass the class, that's fine.
That's good for considering you
yeah,
you're an ESL student.
Yeah, that's
and
how,
so you think that ESL students lower their standards because they feel like this barrier is impeding their success.
Our project proposal was to identify and observe the positive and negative aspects that ESL students face. This was done by having student surveys and interviewing them, as well as their support system here at school, people like teachers and counselors. We took many initiatives to get as many ESL students involved as possible. This was done by going into classrooms and first having a presentation to explain why we are so interested in their situation. Then we took the same process to the International Youth Council, which is in charge of making ESL better, to get them on board. Our major step in this whole process was to create a survey that tackled all of the different aspects second language learners face at Roosevelt High School.
Comparing what grade you're in with the highest level of education you expect to obtain, we found out that 44% of 9th graders see themselves attaining a 4-year college degree or higher, compared to the seniors who expect to attain a 4-year education or higher at 55%. We see that the underclassmen enrolled in ESL programs have a harder time seeing themselves in a post-secondary setting, but seniors, on the other hand, have developed skills and feel more capable of continuing with school. As we look at whether or not ESL underclassmen know about the benefits or financial aid opportunities of continuing education and their knowledge on graduation requirements, their percentages are drastically low compared to seniors. This knowledge can be the difference between whether or not they graduate on time or pursue their future aspirations.
I think that one of the issues that hinder their education is having interrupted schooling before arriving in the U.S. And so when students have more academic skills in their first language, they learn faster and they develop their language skills much faster. Well, with any program, there are things that could be improved, right? We wish we had more classes. Let's say when a student arrives here in our school or in the district, we would like to have to provide them with more beginning classes, but with different teachers, So we don't have that. We have one teacher doing the EOD 1 level, and we have me doing the other level. So it would be more interesting for the students to have different teachers in different levels.
The questions in which I found a correlation are: how do you describe your gender, and do you believe an ESL counselor would help your academic success? Given the results, it was interesting to identify the fact that 75% of males considered the answer yes to this question, as opposed to the 58% of girls. This reveals that having an ESL counselor as a resource would potentially help male students succeed academically, as well as bridging the gap to language barriers. This resource would play a pivotal role in the student's life and enable them to further their academic studies in high school and college. It would motivate male students to stay dedicated to their studies and know that someone who relates to them is there for them.
I've been working in education for 12 years, and my very first job when I moved back to Portland was working with migrant farm worker families. So as soon as I got into education, I was working with bilingual students, and mostly ESL students. I think there's always, nervousness around learning English and practicing English. And I'm always really amazed because I usually, if I have Spanish-speaking students, I always speak Spanish with them because I know that that's why they're more comfortable. But one of my favorite things is actually seeing like a piece of writing that one of my Spanish speakers does in English, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're totally bilingual and I didn't even know this. So I think often kids are really developing skills a lot faster than I am aware of because I speak Spanish with them. And so I guess I really love seeing like that skill built in them and having it be this surprise to me because I'm not always aware of it. In terms of patterns, we've gotten a lot of new students from Central America. We were just talking about that just this past year, actually. And so I'm seeing our program getting bigger and stronger around them, and I'm really excited about supporting them. And so, just kind of politically, it's been really interesting to see like that shift in what population we're getting in our schools.
If you compare to yourself to other students, you think yourself you're not really not even there to be competing yourself with them. So now I'm doing good in my school days, I'm passing my classes, but when I see other students, other English people who was born here, I'm not even to there, but I hope when I go to colleges and everything, developing my language and everything.
So most of us will feel ashamed being ESL class because of friends make fun of us, or they'll be like, oh, you're in a low class, stuff like that. So
Like, you have to learn English to be successful in your school, because that's how like the curriculums are taught by. So while you learn this new language, you kind of start to lose yours.
What level of ESL are you in now? And do you push aside your culture in order for people to accept you? For those who are in ESL 1-2, about 50% of them answered no to pushing their culture aside, and 50% answered yes to the following. On the other hand, 73.53% of the students in the ESL 3-4 class answered no to pushing their culture aside, and 26.47% answered yes. From this data, we learned that about half of the students in the ESL 1-2 push aside their culture in order to be accepted. But as they move up into the 3-4 class, they start to accept their culture more often when they're around others. This is significant because we note that ESL students start to feel more welcomed in the Roosevelt community as they continue another year.
Through interacting with ESL students while giving out our survey, we noticed that depending on the level the students are on, the more they know how to navigate their academic journey. We visited 3 levels of ESL classes, 1-2, 3-4, and 4-5. Out of all the 3 classes, ESL 1-2 seems to need more mentorship. Most of the students in ESL 1-2 arrived in the US very recently, therefore most of them didn't know how to speak English. When they were taking the survey, most of them needed lots of help, and we had some students and teachers translating the questions for them because they didn't understand the questions in English. Therefore, I think that students who are in ESL 1-2 are the ones who need mentorship and help navigating the school system. Once they move out of 1-2 level, they are able to help themselves. We noticed this through interacting with ESL students who are in the higher level of ESL classes.
But it's not the program itself. I think there's a lot of issues that connect to the students' motivation to learn the language, students' goals, what they want to do. what they want to do when they grow up and in college. So there are several factors that affect the program and schedule and all that. But I think that we do have an effective and strong program here at Roosevelt.
I just want them to stay in school. I think a lot of times when young people come from other countries, they also need to make money to support their families, and that's a lot of the reason that, you know, people are immigrants, because they need to support their families financially. And so I've had students over the years that have needed to leave school to work because they needed to send family home or money home to their families in other countries. And that's really heartbreaking to me, because I know that the whole reason families send their kids here and bring their kids here is so that they can get a better education. And so I really want to see kids become multilingual, not just become English speakers, but maintain their native languages and graduate and go on to college and, you know, get better jobs and improve their whole family's lifestyle.
I like to bring an awareness of the social issues of our time. I like our students to be more actively engaged in their communities. So I do expect that my students will be leaders, that they will become politicians one day, that they will be writing policy in whatever field they want. It could be, you know, policy for healthcare. It could be policy for, you know, economic issues. So as we talk about the units and the topics, I also like to talk about the different careers that are out there, because I expect my students, as I said, to become professionals and to have an impact in our community and in our world.
I'm going to Oregon State University, and I'm planning on to study something that is related to science.
Yeah, but I have a two choice. One is become a nurse, a pediatric nurse, or work with immigrants.
Because I am passionate,
Determined, motivated,
Successful.
competent,
Confident,
bilingual,
leader.
hopeful.